Hi everyone, we're back and I'm so excited to actually be back. We took a break for a while. Nick and I just decided it's important for us to just rest and regroup with what our intentions were when we started the podcast and to just reevaluate who we are now versus who we were then, and just let go of this idea that everything has to be perfect and keep up with schedules and always be posting and always be putting on, and it was just too much pressure. So we decided to take a little break, and now I feel like we're actually ready to come back to it, and I'm excited. I'm excited to really just share.
And yeah, so it's basically just been a new way of thinking and new way of approaching how we do our podcast and even just our content in general and the way we teach and the way we bring across different messages. And there was this moment where we had to really take note of us living this outside in life versus this inside out life that we teach, and we got caught in that trap a bit, and we had to just take a step back and really reintegrate and ground ourselves. And so thank you for being so patient. And this is actually an episode that we recorded end of last year. It was going to be, I think it was going to be episode 17 or 18 that we were going to put on, and then we kind of made the decision and we said, look, this will be the first one that we put on when we get started again. And you know, sometimes it's really nice to just start from scratch, using the hindsight that you've accrued through the mistakes and your different perspectives. So I hope that you enjoy this. This was really an incredible conversation, and I think it will be very insightful.
So we've got Hayley Carr on here, who is an incredible NLP practitioner and someone who we've spent a lot of time learning from, and especially when it came to healing our mindset and working with the mind and just shifting our beliefs and the systems that we were in when it came to money and all of those things. And so this is a really interesting one because it's so applicable to where we are now and just listening and learning again. But anyway, I'm excited. I hope that you enjoy this one, and thank you so much for showing up here and for honoring us and for honoring yourself.
So I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Journey of Now. And today we have an incredible woman, which we waited 2 months for this opportunity to have this conversation with. And we've been talking for like 20 minutes. You should probably add this part to the podcast. But today I would like to introduce to you Hayley Carr, who is not only an incredible teacher, NLP practitioner, she is also just an incredible human being. And I've learned so much, Karis has learned so much, and we've been privileged to do some of her work and just immerse ourselves with her incredible, unique perspective on life, on society, and just on personal growth and better understanding your environment and who you are in terms of your environment. So I would just like to welcome you, Hayley, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I wanted to say to everyone, and no, Hayley, I'm so freaking excited to have you. Yeah, finally. But also I shared this with you before we started. One of the reasons why I wanted to have you so badly is because especially in the country where I'm in, South Africa, it's this very 9-to-5 mindset, and you don't go outside of that space. If you do, unless it's successful, then you're considered crazy, and you need to find safety and security in the security of a job. And a lot of people put themselves under so much pressure, and then there's all of the side effects of not living a life that is true to you, which is the anxiety and the depression and feeling so disconnected to yourself. But I just want to show people that, there is a different way of doing things. You don't have to suffer, work hard and die and be in that cycle. And then when you come to the end of your life, you regret not doing all the things that you want to and taking a chance on yourself. And with Hayley, I've never in my life seen someone live such a heart-centered life and do things in such a sustainable way, but also bring so much, I want to say value, but that's not the word. I think you're activating people and healing them, but in a very, I want to say it's the softest force. It's
fierce.
You know how with wind they say that you can't see it, but you can feel it. And I think it's the same thing with the way that you do it, because initially you think, okay, well, I can't really see these shifts and changes right now. And then all of a sudden it like hits you all at once when you're looking at your life a year later. And that was the same thing with Nick and I. When I spoke to Hayley, I was like, I think it was the script for the super abundance course that you put out, which was all about like money manifestation, and Nick and I were in such a bad place then. And I was like, oh, you know what, I'm going to take a chance and I'm going to message Hayley and be like, I'll do this, I'll work for free, blah blah blah. And Hayley was like, no honey, I think that you can manifest this money. I'm going to challenge you to do it. And I was like, oh, what the fuck, yeah, I am just putting myself out there. And like why is she not?
You want to do a course on money, and you're not wanting to pay for it.
I didn't see it then. I was just like, why is she not helping me? Like, I'm putting my heart here. And then she was like, no, I'm going to challenge you to do the thing that you're supposed to learn within the course. And literally, it was like 24 hours later. Suddenly, somehow, we came up with the money. And she was like, well, you did it. So, I didn't think in my head that was manifestation. I was like, you know what? If I want to do something, I'll find a way to do it. And we really wanted to do something. I felt like it wasn't even like a want. It was like, this is the next step, and this is what we have to do to free ourselves of this, and that.
Yeah.
And it was really beautiful. And so, Hayley, I just wanted to dive into.
Can you introduce yourself as well? Please. We just dived into a question there. Please, like if you can just introduce yourself and how you kind of found your space of being and what you're doing in a very short and gentle introduction. Well, it can be the whole podcast. You've got an incredible life. Just make it the introduction of Hayley, and we can make this a 10-part series. Just wait 2 months in between.
And we can sell it. No, just kidding. Okay, so I will give you a shortened version. Hi, I'm Hayley, and I'm from Australia. And I did not start out as somebody who intended to be somebody who does these types of things, like say to someone, hey, you can manifest the money, because I was the type of person who used to get given things for free because I was in such a shit spot. Like I wasn't, can I swear?
You can swear. You can say
crude as you like.
You can say fuck, you can say
okay.
Whatever.
You can even string it together. You can make a whole sentence.
Okay, well, Aussies tend to do that.
Lovely,
we turn
great.
We make a one-word sentence. So, I was, I guess, initially very passionate about martial arts, and I did really well in my martial arts because I loved to push myself in unique ways until I burnt myself out. And that, I think, was like the beginning of my life, actually, when I thought it was over. Because I had to learn a whole new way to exist. I had to learn how to listen to my body for the first time, when I had trained it like an expert since the age of 15 to switch off my feeling so that I could become very good at martial arts. And through that experience of burning out, I actually was introduced to some new concepts. Well, I wasn't introduced to them then. I was introduced to them to rise up in my martial arts. And that was the NLP and personal growth and things like that. I was studying to be an interior architect. I did not like what I was doing. I liked what I was doing. I just didn't like the industry. I didn't feel it was very much a passion of mine. But the way that I was doing it wasn't sustainable. Actually, if I had the thought when I was young that I could have started my own business, which I didn't believe I could do, I may actually have started an interior design business of my own and applied everything I'm learning now or doing now to that. So I don't think that you have to be a life coach to have a sustainable life, but that's what I ended up doing. You know, the first time I learned this stuff, I was like, I need to teach this to others. People started asking me how I kind of rose up in my martial arts, and it was all credit to what I was learning. And then I got really sick. And I didn't get out of bed for 3 years. And then I got better and I came back to my martial arts, and people started asking me, how the heck did you do that? And it was all a credit to the mindset stuff that I was doing. And then that's kind of how I found myself doing what I'm doing now was because I couldn't not do it. It had changed, it had actually saved my life in a way. And I had one of those moments where I was like, you know, if I go back to living a normal life, if I ever can get off this couch and have a normal life, what do I want it to look like? And I knew I didn't want it to look like how it did before. I really didn't plan on having a business. I dreamed about it. I didn't know what I was going to do because I didn't know what my future looked like. It was very dark. But I knew that in that moment I could coach somebody. And I knew that when I coached people, I had energy that I couldn't access any other time of the day. And from there, it kind of just snowballed. And here we are.
There we go. Just to the point. Thank you.
12 years later.
Yeah, I think, you know, there was a point of one part of your story that you shared in another podcast where you speak about how you had this trip that you wanted to go to. I think it was a trip, but there was this thing that you wanted to do. And you were like, okay, but I don't have this amount of money. And you spoke to your coach and he was like, why not just go 10 times over that amount? Like, why not just try and push yourself to do that instead of just going for the bare minimum? And I really love that. So, did I get it right? Was that the
yeah, that's right. There's actually been a couple of times where that's happened. But that final trip that you're referencing right now, that was the moment when I decided that money is never going to be the reason ever again that I tell myself I'm not allowed to do something or I can't do something. And I'm not saying that actually gets easier as you make more money, because every single time I want to do something that's outside of my comfort zone or that feels really edgy or really new or just really like a dumb purchase that's like bad timing, the Aussie dollar's bum, like it's really bad timing, you rent it, like whatever. I still have the same shit come up. And yeah, it was that experience that had it change everything for me. And it was that I was working really hard to create what I was creating. Like it was working, but I had actually invested the amount, well, okay, put it this way. I was working with this coach that I was really excited to work with. And the deposit to pay him, a client paid me upfront for a year, and I took that upfront payment and gave it to my coach as the deposit. And I didn't know what the next month's payment was going to look like. I didn't know how I was going to do that. So I was doing this for months, and I kept proving my fears wrong by staying grounded and centered and focusing on what I knew was going to make a difference, even though I couldn't see the evidence at all times. And sometimes it was like within a hair, you know, being able to make each payment. And it was the greatest gift that, honestly, the greatest gift I'd ever given myself was to not let that fear actually take over, even though it took over my body at times and it took over my stress levels at times. And so I was able to create the money to pay my coach, which was, it felt like a huge achievement. But he had this workshop overseas in London, and I really wanted to attend, and it was going to be about $3,500 to get the flight. But I had to also pay for accommodation, and you fly to London from Australia, you don't go there for a weekend unless you just don't want to be able to see, because it's so far and you're on the opposite time zone. So, you know, I knew that I had to stay for at least a little while. And my coach says to me, Hayley, just put it on your credit card. Like, this doesn't have to be a thing. And I was like, you don't understand, dude. Like, credit card's maxed out. I'm totally maxed. I'm beyond the limit right now. And he said, okay, you're only allowed to come. Forget it. Take it off the table. Don't do that. It's just going to exhaust you. He said, you're only allowed to come if this trip will give you more energy, more money, more inspiration, and more time to yourself as a result of coming than not. If it can't give you that, don't come. And his name is Rich Lippman. He's amazing. And he said, this is like called putting a rider on your goals. And what it means is it's like putting a condition on your goals. Like, I'll only do that if I do it my way, because I'm not willing to do it and have it exhaust me as a result. Like I was at the end of my energy in all ways, physical and non-physical. And from that place, he said to me, why don't you try to solve the problem of creating $35,000 instead of $3,500 so that you never have this issue again. And that made me go cross-eyed. I was like, what? I don't understand what you had. What? Okay. And I left the call not knowing what he was even talking about or whether. But from that place, I created something that felt like it gave me more time, more energy. If it worked, it would give me more money and more inspiration. Even if it didn't work, I would be more inspired as a result. And that was where one of my events was born, called Play Bigger, Feel Better, where we hang around and drink tea all weekend in a beautiful house. And I was like, even if nobody comes, it's going to be awesome because I'll talk to myself and drink tea. That's great. I'm serious. And actually that workshop did not pay for my trip. I don't think I made the money to pay for the trip off the back of that workshop. But just being in the energy of creating that felt so good. And my energy just came all the way back into my body, that other opportunities presented themselves very easily. And I could get on the plane, and I ended up booking a trip like to Italy and Turkey off the back of it. And I felt very abundant flying over there. Yeah. But it was because I was in the energy of, I'm only willing to do this, to take care of myself and not to wreck myself. Yeah, it was life-changing.
Isn't that what Folkwood also shares about how, when he manifests, he doesn't do it from a space of, I'll take what I can give, but it's, what, universe, I'm here with my balls out, and I need you to match me in this space. And that's exactly what you did.
Come and tickle my balls.
Tits out for the universe. Tits out for the universe.
That's
it.
And
we have to do t-shirts on that.
It feels like that though, because you're so naked and vulnerable in that space, and it's really shit scary because it's like, I'm here. I might be shitting myself, but I'm here. I wanted to also share with you, there was this chart that I looked at in this week, which was all about how like the level of like emotions, the vibrational frequency, and also the density, and like the mindset that's associated with those like frequency and emotion. So on the one side, they had, I think it was survival mindset. And then on the other side, it was pain and lust at the bottom. And then it was fear and all of these other aspects of like being in the space of not being in the energy and not feeling very good, not feeling worthy of anything. And so the one that supersedes like all of those is just having that will. So it doesn't matter if you don't have the mindset just yet. If you're still fearful, your will to want to do something supersedes anything. And if you have that like will and the willingness to be open and the willingness to just do something new, I promise you, it's like whatever you are willing to accept, not accept in that space, but just that will to do it, it'll be matched and you'll be met in that space. And yeah, it's really beautiful. So even if you're scared, and even if you're shaking in your boots and you're standing there in public with your tits out, like do it. Everything that's meant for you will come to you, and just trusting that is it's hard, but
oh my god, like trusting it is, trust is a choice. Like it's not something that the universe has to prove to you that it's worthwhile doing. Like you have to make the choice to trust. And I think that it's a willingness. I love that word, Karis, because to me, you have to be willing to, and the key word is willing. It doesn't mean you will lose it all, but you have to be willing to look stupid. You have to be willing to fuck it up completely. You have to be willing to not have it returned to you the way that you want, when you want, in order to risk having it the way that you want, when you want. Like there is a risk in doing that, but there's just a bigger risk in not doing it as well. And if you're willing to risk it, that there's so much magic there. And I think that so many of us are trying to avoid having to be willing to risk it. Like we want the guarantee that I'm going to be safe if I do this. And that's the price of entry. You have to be willing to give up safety, give up your ego.
I like that. The price of entry. Oh,
it really powerful. Is. And I mean, there's that saying, you have to be willing to do things that other people are not willing to do in order to live a life that other people don't choose to live or get to live. And it's not because it's not necessarily available to a lot of people. It's that a lot of people are not willing to potentially fail, potentially look silly, potentially upset somebody or offend somebody, or have your bank account go down. Heaven forbid, have your bank account go down for a little bit. That would just be terrible, right? Or to put yourself out there and not know what you're saying, or to, that's the price of entry. Sorry, not sorry.
You know, I think that our accountant is probably the only one that has seen the level of shit show that we've been in, but also it's like,
he's such a good space holder.
He's just like, you know what, guys? Wow. Like, I fully, like, I'm so, like, I trust what you're doing. I know you'll get there. Like, I'm just here to
watch the show. You guys are batshit, but I love it.
And
that's it. That's literally it. And he's like, I can see, like, his mindset is, you know what, you guys are going to make that type of money, and you're like my long-term investment plan for my fees, so don't stress.
It's just like same way that you're learning to trust in yourself, and to have someone else see that in you, and especially when they can see how much in the red things are, but also like the willingness to still be here.
Now you're still showing up.
And especially, you know, I think what a lot of people also don't understand is that we have 2 small kids, and it's not just like our lives that are being affected by this, but at the same time, it's like, I'm not willing to sit and be swallowed by and be suffocated by my own fears, because my fear of not doing it was way more than the fear of doing it. Because worst thing that could happen is that it doesn't work out and you find something else. But at the end of the day, sometimes not doing it is worse than doing it and like failing, because when you fail, it's not necessarily a failure. You always learn something. And
well, I think a lot of the anxiety that gets caused by people, like that a lot of us are experiencing on the planet right now, that level of fear and anxiety is created by a lack of action. It's in that inaction, that sitting and waiting on our creations, the not doing, the thinking we should be somewhere else, the knowing that we're not doing the thing. And that energy just circulates through a person's body and creates so much anxiety. And yet we still fear walking through the portal, having to go, because we would almost rather sit. It doesn't sound logical when I say it like this, but it's almost like we'd rather sit with a level of low-hanging anxiety for the rest of our lives than risk feeling heightened scared for a little bit, as you say, shit show, for like the rest of our lives, knowing that we did it. And again, it's a portal that you have to walk through. It's like wading through honey. There's no amount of time that it takes. For me, it was like 7 years of not fucking knowing if it was going to work, and wondering if I was crazy, questioning my sanity. At one point, I did go and get a job. I worked in a cafe. It was only for 6 weeks, as it turns out.
Wow.
But I was holding on so tight to the need to not get a job, because to me, I had made it mean failure, and it meant that I had to talk to my accountant about, you know, accountants would be the best life coaches, honestly, if they could talk about manifesting and stuff. But, you know, I had to, I was out, like I had no other choice. I was living in a town where I was quite sick. I didn't have a car. I didn't have the finances to get better. My clients were coming to an end, and I didn't have the energy to go and create more clients at that point. So I had 2 weeks of like rent remaining. My housemate moved out, so my rent was going to double. I had no furniture, and I was like crying on the floor. All I owned was a rug that I bought in Morocco, and I was sitting on the floor like, fuck, you know, what am I going to do? And my mum was like, come home, just move home. You're being an idiot. Like, stop doing it. I was like, I'm not coming home. And then I went to a cafe, I went to a cafe, I sat down because I had money. I had like a couple of $100 and I was like, well, I'll spend a little bit of it on a cup of tea. I'm sitting in a cafe with a friend of mine complaining about my life. And I said to the manager, do you need a barista? And he goes, can you make coffee? I said, I will be able to by Monday. And so I spent like $100 on a course on making coffee that weekend. And I rocked up like during rush hour and was like making coffee. And that energy of like just being willing to do it and the safety that it created for me, and just knowing that my rent would be paid for, so I could just take a mental break from trying to create it all. Once again, it was that non-attachment. Someone reached out in those few weeks. Like nobody knew that what was the shit show that was going on between my ears, like to the rest of the world. I don't know. I was doing whatever I was doing. But someone had already been thinking about working with me, and they decided at that point that it was time to start doing so. And once again, like it all just kind of flowed. I had an upfront payment come in and I was able to go and buy a car. Like life changed again in 6 weeks. But man, was I holding on so tight to like not getting a job, because that meant failure. And that actual letting go, just allowing myself to receive money the way that it was available to me was, I'm still here now because of that.
That's the thing that Nick and I speak about a lot, is just that being in that flow of surrender, because your manifestations and all the things that you want and the things that you want to build, it needs that like a flow of energy. You can't be stagnant in that space, and surrendering allows you to be in that flow. It allows for you to not be stagnant. And
I also just want to add to that, it's like you've put so much work in creating, and you're now making and making and making and making and doing and doing and doing, but you're forgetting to receive. And how are you going to receive if you can't let go of what you've been making and allowing yourself to just open up to receive? Because you're this full cup that's overflowing with all the stuff you're making. You're not letting go of it, and it can't come back and return to you in the way that it wants to. And that, to be honest, that's something that we really didn't get that process. We were just doing and doing and doing and doing and doing, and we were just too full of doing and not in a state of being. And I think that leads us to like one of the things in one of your teachings which stuck with us, and we didn't get it, but it was the yin and the yang, the masculine, the feminine, the doing and the being. So if you could like just dive into that a bit and just give people maybe just a clearer understanding of that principle from your perspective.
Well, there's no room for, I fully believe that the unseen forces, like the quantum field, that's where all the heavy lifting is happening. And so if you're playing your part, sometimes things don't happen on your time, but it doesn't mean they're not happening. Sometimes the ask that you have, life needs to rearrange itself a little. You might have the seed of a thought of wanting to be in a relationship, and it may take 5, 10, 15, fucking 50 years. Who cares? But like the person that is getting ready to be with you is going through their own thing right now in ways you can't comprehend or see or understand. And so there's things that have to be rearranged in order for that to happen. And so the way that I like to look at it, and there's lots of ways you can look at it, is that when I show up and I do my part, there's only so much I can do before I can't do anything else. And I can sit there and make myself look busy. My mum calls it fart-assing around, like looking busy but not doing anything. Or I can actually go and enjoy myself and kind of literally hand it over, knowing that I've actually played my part, and it speeds up, because the unseen forces, I'm going to speak on their behalf. I don't know what they actually say, or if there is an actual them, but they're like, yay, she gets it, right? Like now there's actually room for us to do the thing. Like there was no space before, now there's space. And this is something that, I'm still learning to do this in new ways, Sometimes, because my habit, my ingrained habit was always just go, 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 don't stop. And there's only a certain point you can give before you have to receive. So you can only breathe out so much before you have to breathe in. You can only breathe in so much before you have to breathe out. And when you think of it like breathing, it makes everything flow. We have to release money to make way for more. We make way for more so we can give more, so we can show up more. When you sit and allow yourself to fully soften, it's like the world goes, oh, finally, now it all can come rushing in, because you haven't got your sphincter so tight that nothing's going to work anymore. And so I remember when I was really sick, like chronic fatigue, laying on the couch. It had been about 2.5 years, and I would spend so much time. I wasn't awake for very long during the day, but most of it was spent thinking about all the things I wanted to do when I was going to get better, the ways that I was behind in life, watching my friends settle down, marry people, have kids. And I was like, I'm so behind. It was so stressful on my nervous system. And I remember one day, it was like I was sitting on the couch, the sun was shining on my face, and this thought popped into my head. You actually asked for a break. Like, you hated your job. And here you are sitting around with nothing to do. You've never been this not busy in your life, yet in your head, you've just been going over and over and over and over and over things. Why don't you just pretend like you're on a holiday, even though you're not? Just pretend like you're on a holiday. And, I'm having this conversation with myself, like, this is revolutionary. Like, I picked up a magazine that was like 5 years old. And I started flicking through this magazine, and I could feel my nervous system settle into the couch. And it was the most foreign feeling, because I didn't know how to rest. I hadn't rested once in all these years. I'd been laying on the couch flat. I had not been resting. My mind was ticking over. And I finally let myself actually enjoy something, because I felt so guilty about my partner taking care of me, and the fact that I couldn't work. I was like a little ball of stress, even though I was supposed to be healing. Oh my goodness. And then within 6 months, my body had transformed itself back to some resemblance of normalcy. And I know it was from that moment of going, you know what? If I can't actually do anything, I might as well goddamn enjoy it. And being where I was.
That's you literally just surrendered to where you were and just allowed it to be.
Literally, yeah.
And I just want to add one more thing. Like, you actually let go of expectation, because you had all these external expectations, and this is what you're expected to do. This is what your life is expected to look like. And you just let go of that. You're like, you know what? I'm here now. This is all that I have is this now. And you just went with it.
Even though, like, all of the expectations you had on the timeline that you had in your mind, it's like everyone else's expectation of you to do things in a certain time, and you putting the expectation of you to do things in a certain
But you think it's actually you giving yourself the expectation, but it's just you projecting other people's expectations as your own.
And once you realize that, it's like you give yourself permission to just accept that you other people's opinions of you, firstly, and their expectations of you is not your responsibility to live up to. But also you give yourself the permission and
to be
and to just lean in and rest. And when we work with people, one of the things that they struggle with the most is just like resting, feeling worthy. And I think
loving themselves.
There's such a big link in feeling worthy, like loving yourself, but then also feeling worthy of being rested and receiving. And there was this thing that I read the other day about how, the biggest gift I could give myself was letting you love me. And when you think about like relationships in that way and how that reflects on our relationship with everything else in the world, because it's like, you know what, even if you replace you with money, it's like, the biggest gift I could give myself is the permission to let money love me. The biggest gift I could give myself was to let my bed love me. It's just leaning into that and giving yourself the permission to let yourself be loved and be looked after and be honored. And it's just, leaning into also that feeling of feeling full and worthy. And you know what, just you've tried everything else and it's brought you to the point where you are now. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to be in the space of suffering, because it's also expansion if you look at it from a higher perspective. But just letting go, because you've done it all the other ways. Try this way. If it doesn't work, then
Try another way.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do it, like I can't have conversations and write the questions down before. Like it doesn't work for me at all.
No, I just wanted to put some points. One of the stories that you shared in the Super Abundance course, which has stuck with me, talking about permission, is you shared a story about your sister and how wanting to do this horse riding thing. And
we'd love you to share that.
Just because people don't give themselves permission to dream, and when you just give yourself permission to play and dream, I love that one.
My sister's going to be famous for this story. So when she was very young, my sister is like, she should be my older sister because she's more mature. She has her shit together more than me. She's 8 years younger and she's like an old soul, right? She's so beautiful. Anyway, when she was in high school, she went to a Steiner school. She was an extraordinary painter, drawer, like so creative. She has a gift with animals. And since she was a child, she would rather play the game of like being an animal, and she never got over that. Like she has a connection with animals that you don't see in very many people. And so when she was finishing up her schooling, she created this massive mural, like a big piece of art. She actually trained a dog to round up sheep, and then she painted this big work of art of the dog. Like, and that was her final graduation project, because they don't do like exams in a school. Yeah. And anyway, she could go to university based on some other thing that they did. And I said, you know, what do you want to do when you grow up, sort of thing? And she's sitting there with like a book in front of her, looking at all the different courses you can do at university. And she's like, you know what, I think I want to be a graphic designer. And I felt like, what? Where'd you get that idea from? It's not you. Like, what? And it was almost like she was picking from what she thought was available. And I think we all do that. It's in ways. We look at like, what are the options that I have seen other people do, or what do I think is available for me? And I'm going to pick those steps. And I played this game with her and I said, I want you to imagine for a second that you have a really, 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 this is a weird game, bear with me. It's a really, really ridiculously rich, old, super mega old uncle. And he's dying, and he has more money than you could poke a stick at. There's like just more money than ever. And you're his favorite niece. And he says to you, I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to leave everything to you on one condition. You will literally never have to think about money for the rest of your life ever again. It will never be an issue, but you have to do this one thing, and that is pick something, anything, absolutely anything. I don't care if it's a real job or not. You have to pick one thing that you want to do, and you have to do it from 9 to 5 every day, 5 days a week for the rest of your life for free. It doesn't matter what it is, but you have to pick that thing and do it. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? And she said, I would ride horses every single day. And I was like, that's the thing. She goes, oh, that's not a job. You can't do that. That's not real. Well, actually, it turns out it is. Long story short, it's been years since that conversation, and my sister has been through her own journey of like willingness to give up certain things to make this happen. But she ended up finding a school where she could learn about horses, and she went there after her schooling. And she was the city kid, you know, she wasn't like a kid who grew up in the country who knew all of these things, but she had this fire and this passion that so many kids that grow up living in those environments take for granted. So she was a very fierce learner in that environment, and she ended up connecting with somebody who lived 5-6 hours away, who asked her to come and work for him, and he was going to teach her everything he knew. He was kind of like an older uncle because he's older than her, and he was one of the best in Australia at doing this mustering with horses. And she learnt from him. She drove to him 6 hours both ways. I think it was once a week for a while. She had to stop that and go and work somewhere else for a while. And now She has a round yard. She has horses. She trains horses for other people. She rides them all day. It's what she does all day. And it's years and years and years later. And she's been through like a roller coaster of like, can I really do this? Does it really exist? Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. But it's that willingness, once again, to like think about what you would actually do and not dismiss it, but go, well, what if I just look? What if I just Google? What if I just follow the breadcrumbs, you know? Yeah.
Beautiful story. And I think that just the fact that when you're willing to look and you're willing to then just follow that with one step, some form of aligned action, you're bringing it closer and closer. And so your will can build from there. Be it that you're scared shitless and you haven't really let go of the other 99% of things that you need to get there, but you've started by just looking in the direction.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how stupid it sounds. Like, I think for me, when I was growing up, people always used to ask me what my superpower was and blah, blah, blah. And for me, it's always been like loving people. And I was like, that's so dumb. Why couldn't it be like telepathy or whatever else? But in my mind, it's like I knew it was the whole concept of just being able to love someone so much and just and for Nick, he's really like intense and he can break.
I'm just a catalyst. That's all I do.
And so it was so interesting to just give myself permission to like lean into it. It's like, how can you do this? It sounds so dumb. And have people pay for that, if that makes sense. And it's just, and you know, you talk about the unseen space and they were just like, oh, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense. You just have to trust that, you know, we're all here for the reasons that we're supposed to be. And you living as the highest embodiment of yourself is the medicine for the people who need it. And so just trusting that. And yeah, that's literally what I do now. I love people. And
they need to love you.
Nick is a catalyst and he's really intense, and it's that intensity that pierces through someone's fears, and it's just so beautiful and such a gift. And you know, it just it's so, I don't know, I'm just in a space of just feeling really grateful to have said fuck you to the fears and still be here in spite of it. And even though we're still in that space of being fearful sometimes, it's just, you know, it's just there to remind you to surrender more and to let go more. And I wanted to ask you, so what for you are the elements for living a life that is heart-centered and you listening to the whispers of your soul, and also in a way that is sustainable for what you're building or have built?
For someone that's been doing and doing and doing and has no idea how to look out of that box and just experience life from your unique perspective.
I was that person. And, you know, I'm going to say this very bluntly. Sometimes you have to let shit break before you will listen. I think a lot of my work is centered around helping people get there before something breaks, before they have a big wake-up call, like I did. And I really feel like if there's this is going to sound so simple, but the things that make you feel happy, turned on, curious, excited, those things that you have these like secret weird fantasies about, just go there and see what happens, because it's not always that that's a thing that you're going to end up making money from necessarily, but it could be pointing you to the next thing, which points you to the next thing, which points you to the next thing. And that's how you end up becoming clearer. And one of the things that, like, when I know I'm off is when I'm not actually paying attention to doing things that feel good up front. I'm leaving those things until last, like working, doing, creating, and going, oh, I'll allow myself to rest once X has happened. But it actually needs to happen up front. And from there, the actions that I take afterwards end up changing. So to give you an example, I was, for the first 13 years, since being a teenager, for like 13 years as I was a martial artist. And whenever anyone said to me, what are you doing this weekend? My answer was instant, I'm training. What are you doing tonight? Training. What's up? I'm training. Like, don't even ask me. I'm training. That's it. Because that was my life. I trained 5 hours a day most days. And I remember having these like nudges that I didn't want to compete anymore. And it was the scariest thought because, and even actually it was like the universe was, I don't believe the universe is testing me, but I was getting tested to see how serious it was like I was having the opportunity because people were, we had a world titles coming up. People were reaching out from around the world saying, I can't wait to watch you compete. And like students were saying, I can't wait to the tournament, and like parents, friends, all these people that I would train with were excited for it. And I had to be willing to disappoint everybody. But I took off on this first trip, said no, took off. And I had $5,000 in my bank account, which arrived in my bank account the week before I left. I actually had like $1,000. And then I took off on this trip and ended up in a conference that I wanted to go to once again. I was randomly invited to a luncheon for a small group of people at the conference who had shared about the course I was doing with others. So I was like an affiliate, and a few people had signed up to that course because of that, I was invited to this lunch, which I found out about 5 minutes before it happened. I rocked up. I met one of my best friends to this day in that room, and we started traveling the world together. And finally, I had met someone who was just like me. And that was an expander for me to go away and do so many other things that I wanted to do. And I have so many of those moments and those stories where it's like, I don't even know why I'm here. Oh, I know why. It's because I'm supposed to meet you, or it's because I'm supposed to learn this thing so I never go back and do the same thing ever again. And your desires, the things that feel really good, like they're not fucking with you. It's not life playing games with you. It's actually a signpost to the things that will eventually lead you to living a very, very, very full life. And you don't need to know how. You just need to do them. Give yourself permission to do them.
What is it in The Alchemist where he says, you know, the things that you want are, they're also from like the heart of the universe. And when you feed them, you actually feed, it's like you're pouring water back in that space.
Oh,
and
that's
so
lovely.
it's a really loving perspective, because it's like the things that you want also want you. And whether you choose to do it or not, it's still going to be the same for the universe, but just choose to love yourself enough to know that you can do what you want to do, and that it's not in vain, and that they're little whispers. And I wanted to ask you, was it the same when you met your partner? Because I think that so many times we think that the lessons that we're learning, and like leaning into surrender to loving someone, or letting them love you, or just being open to that, is only for like money and our job, but it's so real in relationships as well. So
I think it works exactly the same in every area of life. The only reason why it doesn't work in certain areas of life is because we as an individual have separated that area as being something special or sacred, or we've pedestaled it or made it different in some way. Like a lot of people do that with money. They can manifest everything, but they can't manifest money. Or they can manifest everything, but they can't manifest a relationship. And it's not because a relationship is different or somehow weird. It's because we haven't mapped across the same energy of like, be the thing, be a match for what it is that you want to create. So with my current partner, we're engaged. We're getting married next year.
congratulations.
Thank you. I was so willing to be alone for the rest of my life. I was so willing. And I was actually excited about that. Not in a way like, fuck you, I don't need a man, I'm an independent woman, like with kind of a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, not at all. Admittedly, I was very scared to get into a relationship because I'd come out of a really scary one just before that. That's a whole story in and of itself. But I had reached a point where if I didn't meet someone, I was so deeply in love with my life, and I knew how to connect with others and feel love and love myself when I needed it, that I knew I would be okay. And from that place, and my partner is the same. I had decided that I was not willing to be in a relationship unless it was with someone fucking exceptional. And like, that was it. Unless they make my life better, I'm not willing to be in a relationship. And when we met, we actually both had that same philosophy, which is really cool. And we'd both been going through the same thing, similar things, at the same time on other sides of the country. And the night that I decided to, actually we met on Tinder. And I had two of my friends with me. We were drinking wine and they were like, right, we're getting you on Tinder tonight. And I was like, fuck that. We live in a small town. I'm not getting on Tinder. I don't want people in this area to know that I'm like available. No way. But I knew that I was just being scared. So we had a condition. Each of us had a condition. And I was so not attached. Like it was a joke. I said, no shirtless selfies. I don't want any motherfucker with shirtless selfies because I'm not interested in that. You know, I'm going to be old and wrinkly one day. So that's not the appealing thing for me. My friend was like, no fishing photos. Because if he's got 5 options, that's like 20% of your life, each one. If he's got a fishing photo, you're going to be spent. I was like, I don't mind fishing. I really don't mind. She's like, that's my rule. So, okay, no fishing photos. And another friend of mine was really attracted to bad boys at the time. So she said, if I think he's attractive, it's a no. It's like, fine, whatever. So we literally went through people's profiles, a whole bloody town that night. No. I was over it the next day completely. And I actually swiped on Jamie the next morning because I went back on, still with our conditions, and like swiped on him, but I didn't expect to talk to anybody. And the first time he contacted me, he actually used an Anchorman quote, which I laughed out loud at because I thought it was really funny, but I was like, I'm so over this dumb app, you know, I'm just going to make a little bargain with the universe. The next person who asks me on a date, an actual real life conversation, I will go and I'm deleting the stupid thing and then it's me like out in the world again. And I'd been speaking to probably 10 people and the conversation was kind of boring. It was going nowhere. But I thought it would be one of those people at least because we'd progressed a conversation. And next thing, Jamie's like, do you want to have dinner with me tonight? And I was like, fuck, I haven't worked out if this guy's a psycho. Like, what? You know, I didn't even answer him. But I made a bargain. I made a deal and I was willing to stick to it. I almost cancelled on him. But I decided to meet up with him and he was in town for one night. And he had never intended to come to Byron. And I was on Tinder for one night, and that's how we met. I know. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, there's always someone conspiring in the background, whether you believe it or not, for your highest good.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I just want to just on that amazing note, Hayley, for people that have never seen your content, never experienced you, and just resonate with you, where can they find you? And just how can they reach out and connect with you?
Well, if it's something that you're interested in, having conversations like this, you can come to my website. It's hayleycarr.tv, and I have a podcast and YouTube videos and all kinds of fun things. And
we'll add all the links.
Yeah, honestly, please follow Hayley. Like, I really love your little insights that you share on Instagram. And there was one also that you shared about like doing things from this frazzled space and you making mistakes. And the second you just breathe and like let go, then you're able to do it from a much better space. And all of these little insights and teachings, really, I wanted to ask one last thing. Just one last one, which is just, you know, how the magic happens when your mindset supports your manifestation. What does that mean for you in terms of like what mindset, how do you need to, if you can explain this to someone who isn't familiar with this concept, but it's just, how can you get your mindset to match what you're
wanting to manifest?
In a practical way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, one of my favorite questions to ask is, if I was already there, what would I be believing about the world? What would I be believing about myself? How would I be doing this thing? How would I be showing up today? And that is a mindset in and of itself, to ask yourself to come from that place, instead of going, all right, I'm going to give myself permission to believe things about the world and myself once I've achieved something, but actually to kind of flip it and be that person as like in the now as much as you possibly can. So sometimes there isn't a lot available to us. It's just literally going, well, I would probably stand up a bit straighter, or like I might eat a little healthier or drink some more water, or I would actually be launching this thing, or I'd be taking dance classes. Sometimes there's things that are available, and sometimes I wrote a book on this, actually. It is on my website. But sometimes there are things within your power, and those are the only things that you're meant to be doing. Like if there's a bill that needs to be paid and you can't pay it today, it's none of your business today. So the mindset is about being exactly where you are and doing exactly what is within your power that is available to you today, in this moment, right now, not 1 second later, that's in alignment with where you want to go, instead of what you think is one step out of your pain. Like the discipline, I think, and the mindset is tapping into, even though your bank account might be low, you're under stress, there's lots of time pressure, whatever it might be, if you can step out of that for a hot minute and just mentally go to the place of it's already done, and allow that feeling to be in your body. It's actually the antidote to anxiety, by the way, stepping into a future where it's gone right. But coming from that place, the discipline, I suppose, or the mindset discipline, is to think about being that person and taking one action in this moment that lines up with that, and it collapses time and space to create things that you want.
And thank you for just the energy and who you are, and like your sunshine soul. I really appreciate all of your being and how you do things.
And thank you for being you and for changing our lives.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor. And thank you for being so patient with my fucking calendar.
Hey, it's not a bad thing being busy.
No, it's not a bad thing at all, but I do appreciate the patience.
Thank you so much for tuning in to your Frequency Shift podcast with myself, Nick, and Karis. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode and that you felt that there was a sense of curiosity arising in your space, just wondering, what if I were to make a different decision? What if I were to make that shift? And please like, subscribe, and if you'd be so kind to share this with someone that would be moved by this conversation today, that would be amazing. We're really here to support you and give you the resources in all things spirituality, manifestation, mindset, self-help, and parenting. Thank you so much to everyone that has supported us over the years, and we look forward to creating more meaningful conversations and helping our listeners make the shift in their lives. Thank you.